Hey everybody!
Hi.
We're back for another week of Fabulous Duo short stories. This is week 19.
I stopped counting at 2.
Yes, excellent, as you should. Um, but yeah, so we're here for another fun week. Just a reminder for anybody tuning in, you can listen to us on Spotify, Listen Notes, Google Podcasts, Samsung Podcasts, Podbean. So we got it set up everywhere.
And I think we have something new coming out this week, right?
We do. So going forward, this episode and all of our previous episodes will be on YouTube as well. You can find us there at Fabulous Duo as well. Same name, same stories, same happiness.
After this episode airs on Friday, it'll be on YouTube and it'll be ready for your listening pleasure. And then afterwards, as the week goes on, we're going to be putting up the previous episodes as well.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, I think that's it.
do you want to give a nice recap of what happened last week?
Last week was our live.
Yeah.
That was fun as usual.
It was really fun. Everyone that joined in was so good. Always.
Yeah, so we had a psychic guy who lost his powers.
Yeah.
And we had
an evil immortal king that doesn't want to give up their throne.
Yes, I like that one.
So there were some fun twists in both stories, and neither of them went the way that I think anybody was expecting, which was always great. So go ahead and take a peek at those. We don't want to give any spoilers. Each prompt is always so unique and ridiculous in its own way. I love it.
Yeah, so most of the time when I write the prompts, it's kind of just like, I have no idea what is gonna happen. Like a lot of times I'll come up with something that I don't even have a story for in my head. I'll be like, I don't know what anyone would write about this, and I'll just give you it.
I mean, that's kind of the point of a prompt, right? So if you guys have like a prompt in your mind you want to see a story for, but you can't just seem to put the words together, go ahead and send it to us. You can go to our fabulousduo.podbean.com website and use the contact us page. And when you shoot that over to us, we can see that, and we may be reading your story.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that's all the things we have to say, all the new stuff. How was your day today?
My day's been good. How's your day?
I bought a strawberry trifle.
Trifle? Trifles are good. You're trifling.
All right. Should we get into the first story?
Yeah. So this week, the story that Michelle wrote is related to the prompt, a person gets a job at a prison to try and break their friend out without anyone noticing. For anybody out here thinking this is Prison Break, it is not. So calm down. The story is called Mama Lisa. We all called her Mama Lisa, like the painting, because whenever she was mad, she would just sit with her hands in her lap and smile. That was when you knew someone was about to have a bad time. We were a tight-knit group of friends, and we always had each other's backs, Mama would say. She always told us how she thought of us as her close friends and how she would trust us with her life. She would say that every day, and every day we would stand around and sing her praises until it was time to do a chore for her. We always did our best for Mama, without questioning why she would leave some people behind and why it was so easy for her to throw some of us away. Mama was just that invaluable to us, which is why our group descended into pure chaos when she was arrested. The moment we got the news of Mama's arrest, there were 2 suicide attempts, 15 panic attacks, and the rest of them tried to turn themselves in as well just to be with her. They went absolutely feral, and as the one with the most seniority, I had to bring them all back in line. Imagine running around trying to stop a litter of toddlers with suicidal tendencies. That was my life the day Mama got caught. That day, I learned that a lot of them didn't even understand that our chores were illegal. They didn't know that we had been committing crimes the whole time, and that we were known as one of the most dangerous gangs in the neighborhood. Haven't you ever wondered why we were taught to avoid the police at all costs? Or why we always had to lie anytime someone asked where we're going? I asked them, but I was met with blank stares. Not even one had considered these rules and practices strange. I was only able to calm them down by promising to personally go and break Mama out of jail, which was a stupid promise to make on my part because she was the most wanted criminal in the country and there was no way I was making it back in one piece. A lot of the senior members, and the smarter ones, had already abandoned, which is what I was going to do too. But for some reason, I couldn't help but feel responsible for this gaggle of idiots. And now, here I was, about to essentially turn myself in. However, if I was anything, I was a man of my word, and I couldn't back down now. Unlike me, Mama was more optimistic. In the event that she ever got caught by the cops, she had a plan. We had a guy who could get us inside for the right price. It was more than a hassle for me because I was never privy to the details of the arrangement between them. All I was told was to call him in an emergency, so I did. There was no hi, no hello, just a list of instructions that I was to follow to the T. 1. After the phone call, destroy the SIM card. 2. Wait up to 1 hour for a knock at the door. After 5 minutes, open the door and receive the package. 3. Follow the instructions inside the package and then destroy everything. I received the package successfully, not seeing who left it, and I ripped it open as soon as I shut the door. Inside was an officer's uniform, along with forged official documents for a Sergeant Schutz. Everything from the personal driver's license to the name written on my boxers were the possessions of my new identity, Desmond Schutz. I went through everything, memorizing all the details of the sergeant, his date of birth, the names of his fake family, and the stories behind every one of his injuries. After I was done, I immediately threw everything else into the incinerator. This plan was crazy, but then again, so was Mama. The instructions were extremely detailed, giving me exact times I was supposed to be in exact places in order to infiltrate the facility. According to the instructions, I only had an hour before I lost my window of opportunity and would have had to wait until they decided to transport her to a higher security facility, which might not have been for another few months. Wearing a long trench coat to disguise my disguise, I hailed a cab and had the driver drop me off en route to the facility. They had been holding Mama at the police station until they could get an armored vehicle to transport her to a jail to await her trial. As much as I was ready to leave Mama and the group, I still had a distaste for cops and the government. She was definitely guilty of all the charges, so all they were really doing was deciding whether or not she'd be allowed to live. And that just didn't sit right with me. If I hadn't already been in this business for a good portion of my life, I would have been shaking in my boots at this plan. I was to walk into the facility at the front gates along with the armored vehicle when it stopped for inspection. There would have to be an overreaching amount of infiltration and paid-off cops to be able to pull off a plan this ballsy, and I trusted that there was. It was broad daylight in a flat desert, so there was nowhere to hide and no way to avoid being spotted wandering off the road close to the facility, so I was dropped off a few miles away from the jail. I was able to find a small shrub big enough to conceal myself in, and I waited for the armored truck to show up. The desert was so flat that I could see for miles, and since there had been a drought for the last few weeks, the roads were in perfect condition for even bike tires to kick up a smoke screen. I waited for 30 minutes under the hot sun, keeping my trench coat on in case anyone happened upon me, until I finally heard the rev of a truck engine and the sound of heavy tires on the dirt road. There she was. This would probably be the most high-tech heist I would ever have to pull off alone. I was told that my shoes had sets of retractable wheels in them, like roller skates, that I was to use to keep up with the vehicles entering the gate. This way, I could use the smokescreen created by the truck to hide in a blind spot while hitching a ride to the jail, where I would act as if I had been in the truck the whole time. As I watched the truck get closer and closer, preparing my carabiner on a rope to hook onto whatever I could find, I noticed that the sound of tires and engines were much louder than they should be. Straining my eyes to see through the haze of desert heat coming off from the ground, I could see that there wasn't just one armored truck, it was a convoy. A convoy meant that all of the truck's blind spots were covered by the other cars trailing behind it. If I turned back now, even the boys back home would forgive me for at least trying. It would make the most sense to just cut my losses, not risk my life, and just go home. But I couldn't. The last bit of rational thought I had left drowned out by that sweet, sweet rush of adrenaline. I had roughly 5 minutes before they were in... I had roughly 5 minutes before they were within range of me. I took off both my shoes with the wheels, deployed, and using the shoelaces, I secured them to my knees. If I was going to hitch a ride to jail on the back of the last car of the convoy, simply crouching wouldn't be enough to hide myself in the blind spot. I had to be as close to the ground as possible. The shoes were designed with wide wheels, making any kind of balancing act much easier to handle. The convoy was upon me now, and it was a long one indeed. So long, in fact, that at some point it just looked like traffic. I could see the end of the convoy coming up, and it was time for me to test my cowboy skills. Among all the other sounds of tires on gravel and pebbles and rocks alike dinging off the metal bodies of the cars, the drivers didn't notice the sound of one more ding, being the sound of my carabiner successfully hooking itself to the bumper of the last car in the convoy. Being the sound of my carabiner successfully hooking itself to the bumper of the last car in the convoy. If it wasn't for the adrenaline pumping through my veins, I would have been painfully aware of how stupid I looked. But I was also perfectly hidden by the smokescreen kicked up by the convoy, and the plan was back on track. I was holding onto the rope for dear life while pulling myself closer and closer to the bumper of the car. I had no idea how fast we were going, and thinking about it would just have me counting all the ways this could go horribly wrong. After what felt like hours, the car finally slowed down, and I dragged myself under the car, unhooking the carabiner. Careful not to touch any parts under the car unless I wanted a scar burnt into my skin. I checked my watch. According to the instructions I was given, I was supposed to be through the gates by now. But here I was, lying with my stomach on the asphalt, with the steaming hot engine of a running car right above my head with no plan. I thought I'd make use of my lockpicking skills and try the first thing I could think of. I shimmied myself back out from under the car just enough to reach the lock of the trunk. As I was picking it, I was making sure that no guards had a line of sight on me, and that the cops driving the car were preoccupied with whatever conversation they were having. Quietly unlocking it, carefully pulling myself into the trunk, praying that no one saw me, I laid there waiting to feel the movement of the car again. I heard the wheels start turning slowly, then finally stopped. I could hear the voices of the guards outside talking to each other. It sounded like we had finally reached the gate and were let through without any suspicions. I didn't leave the trunk until I heard the cops walk off into the distance. Then I popped the lid and slipped out, still wearing my trench coat and covering my face with a hat. Every cover identity had an expiration date, the date being the shortest amount of estimated time you could go before someone suspects you of anything. This particular disguise was too high up on the chain of command and would probably expire in a few hours, and that's if nothing goes wrong. Locating the security cameras was quick work since they were usually in obvious places. The hidden cameras were a little hard to spot, but doable, and I avoided as many of them as I could. Once I found a place that couldn't be monitored, I took off my trench coat and assumed the role of Sergeant Desmond Schutz. As I moved closer into the building, there were less and less cameras. I could only guess that I was in the desk job department. As I moved through the building, getting closer and closer to where Mama was being held, I was greeted and saluted by all kinds of official-looking people, and also privy to all the gossip they heard about Mama. Every time I did something like this, I was always astounded by how easily it was to fool people with a calm face and a couple of badges. I memorized the layout of the jail and quickly made my way over to the mess hall, where I was supposed to be 10 minutes ago. Compared to the desk job department, there weren't a lot of greetings or gossip about Mama. Just a bunch of somber-looking guys who never blinked walking around with stacks of papers. I had at least 40 minutes left before the lifespan of the disguise expired, so at this point, I was almost jogging down the halls. We were only half of the way there. I still had to get her out of here. According to the instructions, I was supposed to meet with her in the mess hall for more instructions. Finally, I reached the mess hall and everyone was still eating, including Mama. Before I could go down to her, a loud buzzer echoed throughout the hall, signaling the end of lunch, and Mama and the other inmates were taken back to their cells. This was my chance to reconvene with Mama. She would definitely have a plan for me, and we could escape. I followed the group of inmates and watched as each one was placed in their holding cells. Mama's cell was at the very end of the hall, isolated from the others. Once the officer escorting her locked her cell and walked away, I shuffled over to it and peered through the small window at her. She was sitting in the middle of the room, staring at me, smiling. I didn't even have to do anything to get her attention. It was as if she had been waiting for me. I felt relief wash over me as she walked closer to the small window. What brilliant plan did she have? What are we going to do to get out of here? Suddenly, I felt fingers digging into both my arms and shoulders from behind me, and an arm snaked around my neck, keeping me in a chokehold. "So, this is your right-hand man?" a voice next to my ear asked. "Yep, just like I said, I get my freedom, and you get a percentage of our last heist along with him," Mama said, looking past me to whoever was restraining me. I didn't even bother to look back. My eyes were glued on her. The corners of my vision blurred, and all I could see was her smirking at me as the guards unlocked her cell, letting her out. My breath caught in my throat. I didn't know if my feelings were hurt or if I was angry beyond belief. I choked out, "You!" Without even finishing my thought, she nodded. "You know better than I do that getting out of here is near impossible. Hell, up until today, I thought getting in here was nearly impossible." She patted my cheek and looked at me with false sadness. "I'm going to miss you, but if anyone can get out of here, it's you," she said in a patronizing tone. With that, she let the officers lead her to the exit, leaving me limp in the arms of my captor. I should have known that she would do it to anybody. I had been with her the longest. fought the most battles with her, and in the end, she threw me away like anybody else. I was still processing what she had just done to me, trying to put it into words, but they just weren't coming out until I heard them from the officer behind me. What a heartless witch. Ah, yes, those were the words I was looking for, I mumbled. Wow, she really is terrible. Imagine being that.
Yeah, it's this. It's this.
Hi, it me. I'm that.
Hello, it's me. I this. I done.
That's
I done
something.
This.
Well, I mean, that's a pretty interesting plan. You know, get in there and then wait for instructions only to be flipped.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
I was partially expecting her to do that just because of how much they built up on, like, how her personality is and how, like, she is, like, everyone's expendable except for her.
Yeah, it wasn't supposed to be a secret. You
Yeah.
know, it's just like he even had like a plan to leave the group, but he only went because he felt like he should for his group mates. And he never even considered that she would do that to him, even though why wouldn't she?
Right? Why would she do that to everybody else but not you?
Exactly.
Right? Like, oh, I've been with her the longest. I should have known. You should have known. But it's like that wishful thinking of, like, maybe being the most senior, I have, like, some sort of in with her, some sort of pull, some sort of, like, attachment that she couldn't possibly break, and then she breaks it.
Yeah, well, he was her right-hand man, and she was like, no, my position is pretty secure until it wasn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Because, like, if you think about it, for her, it's like either that or a possible death sentence.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
God. Well, okay. I liked it, though. I liked it. It was very, like, poor guy. He went through all that trouble just to have that happen.
Yeah, he could have walked away, too, but he was like, nah, I want to see if I can do this.
Well, the moral of the story is, don't let adrenaline get to you. Just go.
That's what, hello?
That's the moral of the story.
Don't blindly
commit
trust
crime.
people.
Go ahead, commit crime.
Commit crime. Yeah, commit crime all you want, but make sure you trust who you're committing crimes with.
Yeah, and at least don't get caught.
Don't get caught, and don't let your partner get caught and then trick you into taking their spot in jail.
Right?
Yeah, that's the moral of the story. Don't get your roller skates and then follow behind a car and then be like, oh no.
Exactly.
Keep your roller skates, leave roller skates at home, everybody.
Yep. No more skating on them rollers.
So, fun fact, I was drinking beer.
Uh-huh. That's it.
Yeah, no, so the beer is called Des Chutes.
Oh, nice.
Which is the waterfalls. And I'm like, what am I gonna give his alias? And I'm like, okay, Chutes and Desmond. Because it's DES for Day,
exactly.
right?
Day.
So I'm like, Desmond. So his name is Desmond Chutes because of this beer I was drinking.
That's amazing. Good logic. Good.
Yes.
All good.
Yes.
All right. Well, you want to go ahead and get that started?
Yeah, let's start it up. Let's start her up here. Let's rev her up. Let's go. We're going ahead. I gotta put my face up on the microphone like a voice actor.
No.
Okay, so next up is Kristen's story, and it's called Bursting Your Bubble. The prompt last week was a world where people use bubbles instead of planes to fly long distances. Like a private jet, but it's a bubble. But someone's bubble pops in the sky on the way to their destination. And it's called Bursting Your Bubble. I know I said it twice, but I'll edit that out. Here it goes. We are now boarding passenger 10056. Please make your way to the bubble creation station in your approved terminal. The woman's voice echoed over the intercom as Asher ran to his terminal. There was no way he could miss this flight. He had to get to Yarna tonight at the latest for his business meeting tomorrow. Arriving at his designated terminal, he stepped onto the bubble pad into the tube. The platform began to rise as per usual, and a small sunroof opened up, allowing the pillar to bring him outside. The machine started to vibrate and hum, while the top and bottom of the tube began to secrete the bubble liquid. Now, he had traveled a lot, but this one felt a bit different. The scent was a lot sweeter and pleasant. There was more room for his body to relax and move around in, and it was tinted for privacy and to block out the blinding sun. The machine was finally done forming the bubble, and it was time for takeoff. He could see his luggage following behind him in smaller bubbles. He felt like it was so comforting to have his body cushioned into the super relaxing, comfy premium bubble. Wait, that's when he realized. A premium bubble. It only just clued into him that this is a business class bubble and not an economy bubble. Did I somehow get a free upgrade? I'm quite sure that this was my platform I was told to go to, he muttered to himself while pulling out his ticket and carefully inspecting it. Platform 1B, that's exactly where I ran to. This must be an error on the bubble system. Carefully, he placed his hands against the front of the bubble to activate the nanotech within the liquid, and it showed his trip details. Departing city is Glace on platform 1C. Arriving in Yarna. He had mumbled to himself before the shock set in. Huh? 1C? He shouted as his eyes widened. He started having panicked thoughts. Has this happened before? What happens when you get in the wrong bubble? Should I be worried? The thoughts continued until he worked it out in his brain that everything should be fine. They scanned me through, so it was entirely not my fault for getting on the wrong bubble. This is on them, and I guess flying business class is compensation for their mistake, he said to himself with entitlement and a pout on his face. He gently nuzzled himself back into the comfort of the bubble and started to drift away into slumber as the bubble gently carried him through the sky. The bubble technology was actually fairly new in comparison to aeroplanes that had been in use previously. A group of scientists working towards bettering isolation in the event of a pandemic had stumbled across this new method of transportation using a gel-like liquid mixed together with nanobots. The nanobots were completely water and weatherproof with a very high durability. The gel was very quick to soften into a solid mass while maintaining its light-weighted properties. By mixing the two, the nanobots they created were able to emit strong levels of wind pressure that allowed them to lift the gel substance while carrying up to 1 ton worth of weight based on the type of bubble. The nanobots actually move into the correct shape based on the pre-programming by the tube connected to the platform. So this is what determines if they are going to be an economy bubble, a freight bubble, or a business class bubble. Over time, they began to phase out planes as it cut costs on hiring flight attendants, cleaning staff, and even all of the engineers required to maintain the plane's mechanical inner workings. Although there were a lot of crowds that had protested this due to the amount of jobs lost, there had been a greater amount of crowds in support as this new technology was completely pollution-free and easily renewed. Once the bubble lands at its destination, the tube would encompass it again and a light suction would pull the parts of the bubble into the device, separating the gel and the nanobots into their respective contaminant centers and sterilizing them for their next use. Eventually, the people that worked for these airlines tried to apply for other jobs within the airports, such as terminal guides, tube cleaners, and anything else to get the bills paid. So as their numbers went down, the opposing group eventually gave up and had stopped attempting to fight the bubble tech. Asher's ears began to twitch a bit to the sound of some weird buzzing or beeping. It sounded like a faint alarm in the distance. Upon opening his eyes, the bubble he was in had no longer been in that nice tint that blocked the sun, but rather it was painted red. Looking around outside, he noticed some smaller objects flying towards him with little red lights on them. Oh boy, I guess this is the end of my trip. They'll probably land me somewhere and charge me for stealing the wrong bubble, he said frantically. As the last word slipped from his lips, this loud booming sound echoed through the sky from the objects and started to shake his bubble. The bubble started separating until it popped, and he was now falling through the sky. One of the objects that had emitted the sound collected the remnants of the bubble before floating off back in the direction from which it came, while the other started making its way down to the floor. As Asher was falling, his life had flashed before his eyes, He had spent so much time committed to working at business that he realized how unfulfilled he was feeling. If he died here and now, what would he have to show for it? Was he great at his job? Yes, of course he was, but was that all that mattered in life? No. Before coming to this company, he had aspirations of changing the world and making global impacts that helped everyone. And now, he just travels from one city to another to make pitches for getting more companies to join his company. If they had just treated him well enough to pay for business class in the first place, this would never have been an issue. Tears flew up off of Asher's face as he was falling slowly to the ground. Slowly? He was so focused on the fact his bubble popped and he had wasted his life that he had not noticed the remaining objects that had originally popped him out of the sky had made their way down beneath him to generate a new bubble for him. The entire time he was falling, it was really just these drones slowly working on creating an economy class bubble for him to continue his journey through. The bubble had been completed and the drones went on their way. You could really tell the difference between the two bubbles. This one had no tint to block the light out, and it was definitely less spacious. The scent in here also smelled like, well, himself, as it did not have any fragrances to clear his own. Finally landing in Yarna, Asher had been shaking the entire way of the trip. Was it petty of the air services to send a whole bunch of drones to stop him from flying business class when he was so close already? Is this even legal that they shot him out of the sky and could have given him a heart attack? The airport security had approached his terminal and escorted him to the back room. Sir, do you know why you are here? They had very stern looks on their faces. Well, I was in a rush, and I boarded the wrong bubble? He gulped while looking at them. The guards looked at each other and looked back at him. Your ticket clearly stated where you need to be, and what class you had paid for. Even if you are in a rush, there are huge signs everywhere. This was an act of theft and disobedience. You could be fined $5,000 for this, and even face jail time. He started to sweat more and panic. But you shot me out of the sky! That's illegal! I could have died! I could have... Tears started to fall from his eyes. I just needed to make it to my meeting. I had to get here on time. He began sobbing, and the two guards laughed at him. You were on the way to a meeting? Sir, you are clearly not fit to be attending any meetings. Look at you! You aren't even wearing pants! They continued laughing. Asher's eyes opened wide, and he leapt up. He was still floating gently in his bubble on the way to Yarna. His body was covered in sweat, and the bubble had kept that odor of his scent in here, trapped with him. Damn it. Another dream about going to work without pants. I must be more nervous about this meeting than usual. At least I was able to fly business class for a bit in my dreams. He sighed and then laid back down, waiting for his trip to end. The end.
Yeah.
Bro, that got me.
they got you. Why are these guards so rude laughing at this man?
That got me so many times.
So many times.
It was like, hey, you, like, that was theft. He's like, he shot me out of the sky.
That was attempted murder.
You know bubbles can be remade. You shot me out of the damn sky.
I was right outside the airport and you built me a new bubble. I was literally right there.
Yeah, I like it. It's a testament to how corporate really reacts to these types of things.
Yeah, they really do petty things like that. It's like, oh, I know you're right outside, but can you get in the other car? We don't want people to see, like, you entering in that bubble.
Yeah.
Like, not the image we want.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
It's this. Yeah, no, I like it, and then in the end it was just a dream. And then did he like not? So he went through this dream where he was
he
like
fell in his dream as well. Have you ever fallen asleep in a dream?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this entire time he was already sleeping in his economy bubble, dreaming that he was heading to the airport in a rush, and that he was like, because you know those like, oh my god, I'm gonna be late for school dreams, or I'm gonna be late for work dreams. That's what he was having in the bubble on the way to work.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh my god, I gotta go. Okay, good bubble. And it's like, what really does happen if you get on the wrong, like if you get assigned to the wrong bubble or whatever, you know? Would they actually send drones? Why would they send drones, you know? But, like, would they even allow you? If the bubble has nanotechnology and it works according to your ticket, do you think it wouldn't just be like, wrong terminal? You know?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I like how there was all that detail about how they work and everything like that, and how there are terminals for these things and stuff like that. So that's cool. And
I knew people would ask questions like, how is any of this happening? And it's like, well, you see, the bubbles
Magic.
actually are made up of nanotechnology that have small vacuums that it's just like, okay, you definitely thought this one out.
small vacuums that clean the air, and then I don't anyway, but yeah, so I like how, like, you know, in his dream he was about to die and his life flashed before his eyes, and he had this like realization that he wasted his life in a company that like he didn't really do anything for, and he like abandoned his aspirations and stuff like that. And then he woke up and he was like, that was weird.
Right? I guess I'm still gonna be corporate slave. All right.
Yeah. And for me, that's like I am I don't know. I'm weird because like for me I'm just like, that sounds like a nightmare.
That sounds like a nightmare. It is. It definitely is a nightmare. 100%. But yeah.
Yeah. No, I liked it. It was good.
Good.
I literally, again, I wrote that prompt and I was like, I don't know what the hell.
Yeah, because I mean, you know, and similar to your like a little tidbit about life. So I recently took up knitting.
All right, well, we're gonna say that's it for the day. That's it for the episode.
So the city is called Yarna. And I was drinking a glass of water when I was writing. So I'm like, what city did I depart from? Glace.
You're drinking a glaze.
Yeah. See, that's the way, like, for anybody that is, like, having difficulties trying to come up with names for things, just take a random object and add some letters or take off some letters and you just make a name. And it might actually sound good, like, you know?
You seen that episode of Family Guy where he, like, snuck into, like, a mental ward or something like that, and one of the nurses asked for his name?
Yeah.
He saw a griffin, and then he saw a P, and then he saw a tear. He's like, Peter Griffin.
Exactly. That's how stories are made, you know? You look outside and be like, bubble.
He saw a whole griffin.
I know. Take a patient away.
Griffin.
But yeah, so, like, I like writing the story because I was like, you know what can I do with this weird prompt? And I did something with it. And I'm glad I did something with it.
Yes.
So, speaking of prompts.
Yes.
What's up for next week? I'm ready for another story. Let's do this.
So, let's give each other our prompts for next week.
Yeah. All right. So, your prompt that I have prepared for you, because I think it is, like, I just think it's hilarious. Aliens visit Earth wanting to take over, but they end up just extremely disappointed.
I like that. They really came here and they're just like, wow, we do not want this.
Yeah, they're just like, oh, you guys are having enough problems.
Amazing. Yeah, no, I'm so excited to write that one.
Same.
Yeah. Okay, so your prompt is a love story between a vampire and a mummy.
Aww.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can definitely do this. I can figure that out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I play a lot of games that involve mummies and vampires and ghosts, so...
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Alright, well, that's going to be next week's prompt for both of us, and, you know, feel free for anybody to drop in and listen, and again, if you have any prompts that you want to send us yourself, that is just fabulousduo.podbean.com, and you can also like just tune in on YouTube starting today. You can tune in on Podbean, Spotify, Samsung, Google, and Listen Notes.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, bye.
Oh, we're
We're
done.
like at the end. Oh my god.
Okay. I think yes. Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening. See you next week.
I was greeted and saluted by all kinds of officials. Umbrella, please. Shut up.
Oh boy, I guess this is the end of my trip. They'll probably land me somewhere and charge me for stealing the wrong bubble, he said frantically. I wasn't very frantic at all.
Oh boy, the end of my trip.